Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at how to plot polar graphs in Desmos, how to graph them. So before we do anything, we can actually change the background from a rectangular grid into a polar grid. So if we click on the wrench for the settings and we click on grid, we can change it to a polar grid, so it'll look a little bit more like it does normally. So let's say we want to graph r equals, I'll go back here, so r equals for polar, let's do 4 cosine 5 theta. So 4, and then functions, cosine 5, and then theta is back at the QWERTY keyboard, right above the delete button. So here we see it is a rose curve. It has a petal length of 4, and there are 5 of them because the number in front of theta is odd. And it will also, Desmos will also give us the parameter values from 0 to pi that theta ranges from. So if we want to actually trace this out, we can do that. We just have to introduce a new variable here. So we can use whatever we want. I'll just use q. And I'll just start with q equals 1. So I'll just set it as a default of 1. And now I can actually change what the values that we're going to range from. So let's say instead of pi, I wanted to range from 0 to 2 pi. So I'd start with q is 0, and then arrow over to 2 pi. And for the step, let's do something like pi over 8. So pi divided by 8. And now we'll set q back to 0. Now over in our first equation here, instead of theta ranging from 0 to pi, we can have theta range from 0 to q. And then as we change the value of q down here, it's going to trace out this curve in multiples of pi over 8 radians. So here's our first one, pi over 8, from 0 to pi over 8. And then we keep going, a little bit more. And there's pi, 3.1415, yada, yada, yada. So there we have the entire curve traced out from 0 to pi. If we keep going, it's just going to trace out that exact same curve. So we're not really going to notice a difference because it already traced it out one full time. So Desmos, as of this recording, will set the value for theta to trace out the entire curve. Not always going to be 2 pi, as we saw in this video. All right, so that about does it for polar graphs in Desmos. Thank